Yeah, it's been a while, but here it is. Finally, after long last, I've created the PC video. I've been sleeping on it quite literally for a while now. I made this PC back in February, but hey, now that it's May, I can definitely confirm this PC is kicking butt. It's wonderful. It plays all the things at the settings I want to play it at, which is 1440p at 60 frames per second minimum. Alright, so been doing all that, and yeah, this is a bit of a time capsule, this video, because you're gonna even see me mention Mo in it, because he was around the, running around during that time. So, long wait, it's finally here. Fair warning though, there's gonna be a lot of, I guess you could say, PC techno babble, me rambling on and on and on about PC stuff that if you're really not into like the PC stuff, it might go over your head or it might just bore you. So there's your little fair warning. But without further ado, here it is. Okay, so here she is, the PC I'm going to be sleeperfying. Now this was the PC of my middle school when I was in middle school, when I was a little kid. And if you can see here, it's boasting glorious Windows XP, compatible with Vista. I didn't notice that till now. So, but if you look up here, that sticker must be later. If you look up here, the copyright is 2004, Windows XP Professional. So, try to hold it steady as I can. There you go. So it's pretty old. And whenever I had to work on these computers in my middle school, I always had to do this. Don't know why. It's just a thing I always had to do. Anyway, the reason I love this PC is not because it's old and people want to make sleepers. Now, if you don't know what a sleeper is, let me use a car analogy. You get a 1997 Toyota, you take out the engine and you put in a Lamborghini engine, and then you drive around challenging Ford Mustangs to races, and you blow them away because you're secretly driving a Lamborghini, not a Toyota Corolla. So yeah, that's your little comparison there. So I'm gonna take this old thing, rip out all its old parts, and put in brand spanking, well, not brand spanking, but modern parts that are just, really darn good. And yeah, it's gonna be pretty cool. Now what I love about this is there is actually a vent system right here for airflow. Now you're gonna hear me say that a million times during this. Airflow is super important for computers. I'm gonna be taking out this part here and putting in some fans to help with airflow. I'm gonna be removing this right here and putting in a SSD holder and a USB 3.0 converter thing. So I'll talk about that a little bit later. Now, if we look on the side here, the glorious side, it actually has air vents to help with airflow, which is perfect because this is about where the graphics card is going to sit in this machine. So we can grab its air from here and air from here. I'm going to be installing a fan right behind this. I'm going to open this thing up and show you in a second. Okay, for the first stress test, I have Red Dead Redemption 2 running in the background here. And I'm standing in a major city called Saint Denis, and it's a whole city in the background where the CPU has to basically simulate an entire lively city. So I have my old computer right here, all chugging along, simulating it. And over here, I have the thermals of the CPU. CPU thermals right now are 72 Celsius, the lowest 54, and the highest at 84. Now that's normal, okay? These things go up to like 100 Celsius before they start throttling themselves, which means they're slowing themselves down because they're getting too hot. And in case you're wondering, this is like my little hall of fame of all my past, gizmos. And there is the soon-to-be new PC that I'm gonna work on. So here's the control test, and we'll see how hot the GPU is right now. I'll scroll down to GPU temperatures. Okay. Again, highest was 82 Celsius. Oop, come on, focus. But the average is around 68. Just the spikes of 82 and 68. The 82 is a little worrying because this thing will throttle itself at 88 Celsius. So that's clearly just a little spike and shouldn't be too big of a deal. Alright, so this is the internals of the old PC. So this is all glorious Windows XP kind of stuff. You can see it has like 2 sticks of RAM in there, this archaic PSU, and but the good thing about this is it's using a modern size. called Micro ATX, and I bought a Micro ATX motherboard to fit in here perfectly snugly. Now going back over here, you can see a grid and little places to screw in a fan. So I'm going to put a fan right here to pull air in and flush it this way. I'm also going to be putting a fan up in here to force air to come down into this area to give the CPU, which is right behind this fan, some air as well as the PSU is going to need air as well. Over here is the ventilation fan. So this fan is going to be taking all the hot air that we don't want anymore and shooting it out. And it's going to cause what is known as a negative pressure, where basically it's, you know, air is coming in one end but coming out the other end. And my graphics card itself that'll be installed in this general area is a blower. So what that means is it takes in air and then shoots it out to cool itself down instead of just using fans to blow on it statically. So we're going to be, you know, using a lot of airflow, which is probably what you need for a little tiny PC like this. And hilariously, with all the fishbowl PCs we have, or fish tank PCs we have today, they're just pure glass with like no breathing room. This thing's probably going to have better airflow than any of them. Alright, so what exactly are we putting inside this thing? Let's start with something very simple, the RAM. Now this RAM I have here is really simple. If you notice, it doesn't have heat sinks. You'll notice a lot of RAM these days, to try to be extra cool or whatever, they'll put these heat sinks on them, basically a place to store heat that's waste heat. It's just to look cool. They really have no grand purpose. As a matter of fact, people actually recommend no heat sink RAMs because they can get hit by the airflow easier and therefore get cooled off easier. So the heat sink might be actually keeping your RAM warmer than usual. Anyway, so this is some simple RAM that I got. It is, in case you're wondering, it's 16 gigabytes total, running at 3,600 hertz. So very good little RAM. Upgrade to my current RAM, it's still 16 gigs, it only runs at 3,000 hertz, so it's a little bit boost in hertz, so why not? Now I'll save this over here for last. Over here is this will go into the floppy disk drive, the one on the bottom that you know, was sealed off. So you stick this in there, and it's, you know, all that good stuff, and you know, you stick this in there and you're allowed to store your SSDs on top of this, right? And this will plug into the motherboard itself, and it'll allow you to use USB 3.0. Now that's one of the drawbacks for using a sleeper is the front panel at USBs will most likely be USB 2.0, which is slower and not as good. So this will allow me to upgrade it to 3.0, and it'll hold my SSD. It's called an SSD caddy if you want to, you know, look it up. Okay, so there is that. Next, going in the top drive bay, the bigger drive bay at the very top, will be this. Well, it's not going to be white, it's going to be black. I already looked inside the box, it is black. And as you can see here, it's these fans. There's only two fans, one on each side with the center being, you know, fanless. And again, it's going to take in air and shoot it down into the PC to give it some more nice, cool air from the outside. And you have a little dent right here, but it's fine. I looked inside already. So that's going to go in the front panel. Here is you can see Mo's food off in the distance there. He's not doing so well. We'll take a look at Mo a little later. Anyway, here is the front panel fan. I'm going to be sticking in that spot I kept talking about. So this is, again, 92 millimeters, or like 3.5 inches, and it runs at 2,500 RPM. That's really fast. That is going to be really nice and cozy for the graphics card. Now, the motherboard here is a B660M AD4, and it is Micro ATX, so it should fit inside the sleeper PC. Again, that's when the standard was made anyway. And this is for LGA 1700, or also known as the 12th generation Intel CPUs. Now, this is a very simple motherboard. It allows you to overclock RAM, but not overclock the CPU. That won't matter, I'll tell you very soon. I don't care about overclocking the CPU. but it allows you to overclock the RAM, which is I am going to do, or XPM I think it's called. We're going to do that instead. It comes with all your bells and whistles that you want a motherboard to have. And most importantly, it comes with a PS2 port, not PlayStation 2, but it's called PS/2 port for this ugly, beautiful creature over here. This is the port I'm talking about. This is what it was called at the time, a internet keyboard or a media keyboard. They were the hot ticket back in 2004, and you know, I love them. They come in with this built-in wrist rest, which is great. It has buttons for, like, you know, you beep, hit that, your calculator will come up or whatever, and all these other nice little buttons that make it fun and easy to use. Yeah, it doesn't have all the lights that your gamer keyboards have nowadays, but it's perfectly fine and ugly for the sleeper build. Okay, now moving on to the big one, the CPU. This thing was a pain in the butt to get because FedEx is terrible, but whatever, that's a, you know, ask me about FedEx next time you see me. I'll tell you all much what a nightmare it was to get this thing from them. Anyway, so this is an i7, and if you want to think about, if you don't know much about CPUs, they have like 4 power levels, let's call them. i3, i5, i7, and i9. Their AMD, excuse me, their rival AMD uses R3, R5, R7, R9. So again, it's a number that really shows the power. So this is like the second most powerful tier of CPU, which is fine. And this thing is called a 12700F. What does that mean? So when it comes to Intel CPUs, the F means this thing does not have built-in graphics, which means if I don't have a GPU, I can't see anything on my computer. Normally, Intel CPUs have the graphics built into them. They're not powerful by any means. You want a graphics card for gaming, but it's enough to use the simple Windows dashboard. With this, you can't do that, but hey, I saved $25 compared to the non-F version. Now, with a lot of these Intel CPUs, you'll see the letter K at the end of them. K means it's overclockable. As I stated earlier, I don't care about overclocking. This motherboard is incapable of overclocking. If you wanted to overclock your Intel, you have to get the Z series. See, there's a B here. If you want to overclock your Intel, you need a Z to be there, not B. Anyway, so I don't care about overclocking, and I don't care about graphics. I have graphics cards. I'm not worried about that. And if anything happens to my computer, I have a laptop to do all my work on, if need be, till the gaming PC gets fixed. So whatever. Again, I saved a nice penny from, you know, skimping out on that. And the reason why this is so big, even though the CPU is right there and it's, you know, not big, is it comes with a built-in cooler. The stock cooler, as they call it. The stock cooler is nothing special. As a matter of fact, it even can hold this thing back if it gets too hot, or if it gets too stressed. Which is actually a kind of a good thing, because already, just with its, I've seen from testing videos, with its stock cooler at the 65 watts, this thing is still beating like a 5800X, which is like the rival CPU company's one of the most powerful CPUs they have. So this thing is still beating the rival's most powerful CPU for the average Joe, with even all this, you know, simple kind of stuff. And which means if I want to upgrade my CPU in the future, I don't need a new CPU. I just need a new fan, and that's basically it. And I'm, you know, with the BIOS and the motherboard, I can tell it, hey, you can now run this thing hotter because I have a better fan, and I'll get more frame rates because of that. So that's what we call an upgrade path. But for now, we're gonna use a stock cooler because that's all I really need. Now, do I really need a new CPU? Do I really need to make this PC? Well, arguably no. My current PC, again, it has a Ryzen 5 3600, which is perfectly a-okay for today. It has 6 cores. If you wonder what cores are, the basic little mini brains that help the CPU think. This thing has 12. Now, do video games really need that many cores nowadays? No, but I am planning for the future. I want this thing to last me like 7 years, right? And already I'm seeing for like the recommended CPU for like the best quality for games, the 300 or the 3600 is not cutting it anymore. They're recommending like the 3700. Oh boy! But hey, it's a sign that the 3600 is not top tier, and I want a top tier CPU that will be still mid tier 7 years from now, which I have a strong feeling this will be. Another special thing about the CPU, it is technically 12 cores, but it's 4 small cores and then 8 big cores, and they basically work together to prioritize things. So really, really good stuff. It's really high-tech kind of stuff. It's Intel's best thing they've done in a very, very long time. I'm pretty happy to have this thing finally. All right, and this is a 2080 Super from an Alienware. And I bought it on eBay off a guy for $650. It was open box, so he never truly gamed with this. He just tested it and then threw in his 3080 he apparently also had. So this thing wasn't really played. And in reality, this is a MSI Ventus. So all they do is buy this Alienware, just bought this from MSI, removed all the MSI branding, and that's it. So otherwise it is a blower. So it takes in air here as it spins around, shoots it across, and then expels it out the back right here. That's how blowers work, and that's why it's going to do really good in this PC. Since it's so cramped, it's going to do a really good job at getting rid of hot air. Holy snikes. Okay. Ugh. It was an endeavor to get this thing out. As you can see, it has a bunch of ancient dust on it from 2004. Ugh. Super dusty. I finally got... I sadly, I was hoping I could like resell this motherboard, but as you can see here, it got damaged on me just trying to remove it. I literally had to take a hammer to loosen up these screws. These screws on here are just like they were on the motherboard itself, screwed into these panels right here. And it was just, I couldn't take out the motherboard unless I got this off. And I guess being screwed in for over 20 years-ish, or 18 years, made these things like super set, and I had to take a hammer and like, you know, bash it a little bit to like, I guess, loosen it up. And then after putting all my weight on the darn thing, I was finally able to get it off. Really unfortunate we lost the motherboard. I hope the CPU, I'm just going to recycle it at a Best Buy. This thing's not recoverable, and you know, it's not going to sell that much anyway. This entire thing that I bought, this came with it, was like 50 bucks, so it's really not that salvageable. Alright, so the fan is installed nice and snugly, just perfect to get the air to flow and go through. All these wires here are from all the doodads. Like all these wire right here, actually for the case itself, like its lights and all that kind of good stuff. As you can see in the front here, got these, oh, there was a center fan after all. I don't know what I was thinking. Anyway, so this got in A-OK, super easy. And, you know, its plugs are right there. This thing, though, the SSD caddy was a pain in the butt. I basically had to squeeze it in. It didn't have proper brackets or something. So I had to use some of the hobbled screws to basically barely, you know, hold it into place. See, I got oops, sorry. Got like a little screw right here, just barely, limply, you know, forcing it to stay in there. But hey, it'll have to do for now. Oh boy, this is a week after basically the last time you saw this video. Anyway, so I was using this dinky stock cooler, and you know, it sufficed, but it's not that good. During some games where it causes a lot of loading, it just whirs up like a jet engine, and it's just, you know, it's not good. You know, you don't want to hear that. It doesn't do it all the time with some games, but some games were just whirring up, and it's just distracting. I mean, it's just, that's not good. So I'm ditching this, and this thing is rated for 65 watts, right? But this CPU ranges from 65 to 180 watts, and that's kind of the core reason. When it goes into the boost mode, this thing can't handle the boost. It can only handle the ordinary 65 watt. Apparently this this motherboard can't turn that off, the boost mode. I don't think I would want to anyway. I want my CPU to be able to, you know, be as powerful as possible. So I went and got one of the greatest brands of all time, Noctua. They have in here, oh, here's their logo, it's a little owl, so they get an automatic approval from me. Noctua, and they have this special fan here that fits. I'm gonna try to take this out with my one hand. I do see your hand. I gotta put the phone down. Maybe I can see this. Alright. Hello. And okay, there we go. And look at the size of this lad. All right, much bigger, much bigger. Okay, huge. The heatsink, which is the metal part, this right here, that's all plastic. That's not metal. That's all plastic for show to look cool. The only part that's metal is like right here and this copper little slug here, which is good. That's good stuff. But the metal of this is only about that much. It's not very good. Hopefully this is in camera. If not, then take my word for it. This thing is literally, the heat sink itself is bigger than almost the entire fan itself. Now that is an improvement. This thing will absorb way more heat, and therefore it'll, you know, an Noctua has always been about being quiet, right? And it will just sound so much better. But I want to put this back on. I have to install a bracket on the back of the motherboard, so I had to take out the entire motherboard, and now I have to screw on a new back plate and other kind of stuff to get it to sit in. So I got a project ahead. Hopefully, you know, this thing is finally going to chill out. All right, look at that. Now that is a CPU cooler. There you go. Look how much more, again, just better. I know I messed up the last time, my arm in the way, but now look, arm not in the way. Just like the heat sink, the metal part of this is bigger than like the fan itself. And again, all this is just plastic. This is all plastic. That's just to look cool. It's not meant to cool down. Only metal part is this thin little strip you see at the bottom there. That's the only metal part. This thing is just way more metal. So, literally. Okay. So, as you can see, it's in there. And my goodness, is it ominous. It's taken up a lot of room. But that's kind of good. Means that's, again, the heat is going to be spread out a lot more even. Now I got a fan, like here's the fan I was telling you about right here. Basically, it's too big for the slot that's back there. You can kind of see the slot. So I just leave it in there and leave it kind of wedged in because it's like so big it just fits in on itself. And that blows air, takes it in from right here, and just blows it across. And there's fins on the side of the case right here so it can get some air from right there as well. So, yeah. I think it should be a lot quieter. Now, as you can see, it's a rat nest up there. I'm basically using the empty drive bay as just a place to shove all the crap, to be fully honest. So it is a bit of a mess. But the philosophy of air from the 2000s was air comes in here, moves up horizontally, and then exits through here. This fan right here is from the original setup. Has been unmoved. This is from the original 2004 configuration. Okay, so again, it comes in, blows up right there. Now, this is a blower, this graphics card. It's going to take in air and then shoot it out right here. Okay, it shoots it out right there. So it's causing what we call in the PC community negative pressure. It's going to basically force air from outside inward. So air is going to get in here. I even took out the... right here is where the floppy drive used to be. And it's empty, and as you can see, it's another hole into the PC itself. Again, that's all intentional. Again, give the CPU some air. Even though it's, again, jammed with a bunch of wires, but... it is what it is, and again, if you think this is bad, it was even worse before, and it still worked. So, yeah. It is what it is. We have to basically overkill the cooling aspect of the CPU to get this to work. But, hey, it is what it is. Alright, after much trial and tribulation, we have made it back to the trombone guy. Not trombone, trumpet. This is trumpet, right? Whatever. We got back to him, the jazz guy. And the new CPU cooler is in. Already, the noise is immensely different from the Intel stock cooler. The Intel stock cooler was like revving like a jet engine. Again, the CPU right now is simulating an entire town, an entire city in the background. That causes a lot of stress on the CPU because of all the NPCs going about their lives. We go back over here, and our temperatures are going up into the 60s. That's our current, our minimum, and our max. So it's around 60, which is normal. That's where you want it. That's totally normal. Especially for Intel CPUs that on average run way hotter than AMD ones automatically. So this is great that it's just leveling off at 60. 100 degrees Celsius is when it's in the danger zone, and it's like 40 or at 35 degrees off. That is nothing. So the fact that it's quiet, I think you can hear it a little bit, but you just can't over the game itself. So it's nothing to really fret over. So very happy. Maybe let's mute everything and let's listen. Hear that? You can definitely hear it, but only when everything is muted. I mean, once we put everything back to normal, you can't hear it. That's how I prefer it. So like I've been playing with this for about a week with the Intel cooler, and it's great. It's a great little PC. It does everything I want it to do. Now I'm ready for the future. The whole point of this was like the future-proof the PC. I want this to be good for another like 7 years. Not have to spend any money on a PC equipment for another like 7 years. Maybe a graphics card. The 2080 Super is probably going to do me fine for another at least like 3 or 4 years. At least. So for the main bulk of the PC itself, don't have to spend a dime. So let's hope that's the case. Anyway, thank you for watching. Peace out.